Let's go! Are you kidding me? It's time to talk about the LSU defense and potentially what they could look like in the season opener versus Florida State. So this post-game spring depth chart is presented by our friends at the Pressey Collection and PresseyCollection.com. And I know you normally go from the defensive line to the defensive backfield, but instead we're going back to front, baby, because we have a new DBU watch out with the Pressey Collection. Type in the promo code PHL and you're getting $30 off. Yes, under a hundo for that watch. Are you kidding me? So starting off here with me, the guy that really stood out in our spring film study defensively was Jay Ward. Last year's tackling was really bad. In the spring game, it was immaculate. And I see him next year as a starting safety alongside Joe Big Play Fouché, the transfer from Arkansas. These two have been mostly working as the starting safety for pretty much all of spring. And then we get to Major Burns, Matthew Langlois, Derek Davis Jr., Todd Harris, and Jordan Allen as the backups. But I could see Major Burns because he is more of your traditional deep free safety, getting some serious run, and he has been cleared medically, even though he wasn't able to participate in spring. He's going to be someone that plays a lot. Matthew Langlois also had a very active spring, an up-and-down spring game. New Roads, Louisiana. Shout out Point Capee Parish. Derek Davis Jr., Todd Harris, Jordan Allen. I really like Jordan Allen, one of those Louisiana 3-stars that has a lot of attitude. Now, as far as the cornerback room is concerned, Mekhi Gardner and Jarek Bernard-Converse right now are the starters. They are the two transfers from UL and Oklahoma State. Those guys obviously have a lot of playing experience. Jarek Bernard-Converse got hurt during spring, and then he didn't really play after his foot injury. And Mekhi Gardner also, to me, had a good spring game, considering he was in man coverage against a lot of the best receivers out there. And for me, the top backup is Sevyn Banks. And I think Sevyn, even though he is yet to even take a step on the field for LSU, is going to play a lot and potentially take one of those two starters roles at the traditional cornerback. Now, Redarius Jones, Demarius McGee are two very experienced players. I think McGee and Jones will get their opportunity, and hopefully they live up to expectation. And then you have LaTerrence Welsh and Jalen Davis Robinson coming on over from high school now to the collegiate game. Jalen Davis Robinson could be the most athletic defensive back LSU has, period. He has some real speed. And, of course, LaTerrence Welsh, a top 150 guy. The one thing about the entire secondary, and this is with Welch as well coming in, there are a lot of injuries in the secondary. There are a lot of players that have had a lot of injury history. It's the same thing that we said last week with the running back position. And now we get to the nickel. As many of you know, it is not just two corners, two safeties, right? The nickel is one of the 5 defensive backs that is on the field a majority of the time. And Greg Brooks, the transfer from Arkansas, I think has a slight edge over Sage Ryan, the 5-star out of Lafayette. I thought Sage had some real good moments in the spring game, but I just think because of Greg Brooks' overall experience, he is going to be the guy. And there are a lot of names that we mentioned that could also play some nickel. I could see Jay Ward play some nickel and Major Burns be one of the safeties. You could see so many different variations at that position. So now we get to linebacker, and Mike Jones was a guy that pretty much penciled in his linebacker spot, just the leadership. His ability to obviously play coverage is something that's very interesting. His tackling had some good and bad moments in the spring game, but still he is going to be one of the linebackers. I think the other linebacker is probably going to be Greg Penn. He's not really relinquished that starting linebacker role. This is year 2 for him, obviously from the DC area. Should be a very interesting battle at that position. And the backups are pretty straightforward here. Micah Baskerville, I think, has a little bit of distance from him and the other guys as the number 3 linebacker and potentially the starter alongside Mike Jones. Jared Small's a great story out of Catholic High. Obviously, he was going to be the starter last year, had an injury, and didn't get to play at all last year. And this is going to be, I believe, year 6 for him. Wes Weeks comes over from Virginia. Colby Fields comes over from South Carolina. Incoming linebacker from Florida. We'll see how DeMario Tolan fits in. I know he was really close with Blake Baker, but he decided to keep his commitment, and DeMario Tolan could end up being a big-time linebacker for LSU. So now we're here with the Jack linebacker. B.J. Ojulari is going to be your starter there. I don't think there's any mystery to that. He is one of the few players on this team that you could 1,000% say he is going to start at that position. But I could also see Xavier Carter, Harold Perkins, and Phillip Webb play a lot there. I think Xavier Carter is a very interesting player. He did have some real good moments in the spring game, and they actually moved him around in the spring game. He had a good pressure right up the middle on Walker Howard in that game. So, Xavier is a very interesting player. Now, Harold Perkins and Phillip Webb, we don't know what's actually happening with Phillip Webb, but Harold Perkins, of course, is the real deal. I do view him as a Jack outside linebacker, and I think Xavier Carter and Harold Perkins are going to play a lot more than we initially think for a couple of reasons, and we'll talk more about that as the offseason continues. Boom, I'm looking at you, okay? Now, why do I snap? Do you guys like the snap? Let's talk about the defensive line, what everyone considers the best unit of this defense. The issue for me is I'm a little concerned about the run fits. I know they weren't allowed to do a whole lot of crazy things defensively in the spring game, but just in general, the way a 3-4 works, or how most modern 3-4s works, is your defensive line have to be able to hold up at the line of scrimmage. And this defensive line has penetrators, guys that get into the backfield and make plays, which is perfectly fine. You look at some of the best run defense, defenses out there, in particular the Georgias and the Clemsons or whoever, they're not really penetrators. They just kind of stalemate the line of scrimmage and make plays from there. And what happens is if you do over penetrate, or if you don't have ends that can two gap and hold, their position, you're going to get gashed in the running game. And we saw this even in LSU's traditional 4-man front last year. So, yes, I'm fine with this defensive line. I think it could be really special. You guys know how I feel about Jaquilin Roy and Mason Smith in particular. But stylistically, they're going to have to change some. And that's what Jamar Cain, who is a run game defensive coordinator, that's what he's going to have to figure out here. What is the best way for us to not get gashed in the running game? Now, of course, in the spring game, we saw a lot of different, offensive plays, but the defense never changed their play. So it made it easier for them to get blocked. But still, I am a little worried about this front. Now, the nose tackle and defensive end backups here, the starting 3 defensive linemen, these are their backups: Jacobian Guillory, Mekhi Wingo, Bryce Langston, and Tyji Hill. Obviously, Langston and Hill are a little bit behind Guillory and Wingo, who are more experienced and have put some good film out there. But Hill is just coming out of high school, and Langston we've yet to see really do a whole lot. And you also see here the non-nose tackle backup. So these are the 2 players that are going to play the in roles, but you'll never see them in the zero tech role outside of maybe a pass rushing down, and that is Savion Jones and Quincy Wiggins. Wiggins, had some moments, throughout the spring. Obviously, the fumble recovery was really impressive, but technique-wise, he's just not where he needs to be. Savion Jones is very active. That's something that I really like about him. But still, this is a new position for him. Now, as far as the other backups are concerned, and just the defensive line as a whole, how they stop the run is going to be key. But, just throughout the spring, I just didn't see them getting a whole lot of pass rush outside of the early portions of the spring game. So we'll see. Obviously, pass rushing is more than just defensive line. A lot of it is created by blitzes. But we'll see. Hopefully this unit, dominates next year like we're expecting them to. I do think, though, there's a lot more work, and you should be a little bit more worried about this group. Now, you don't have to worry about Mason Smith or Jaquilin Roy, but trying to figure out the best way to line this defensive lineup is going to be very interesting. And I would not be opposed, LSU, once again, it's past the deadline by the time this video was released. I wouldn't mind them trying to get another defensive lineman in the portal. I know that doesn't sound right, but someone who's a little bit more experienced playing the three-man front. Now, let me know about this defensive depth chart. Comment down below. What are your key players on this defense, okay? Don't forget about our friends at Pricey Collection, PriceyCollection.com, and the DBU Watch. Go on and get you one and support the channel. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom!